We've dealt with the politics. We've heard the grandson of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and I want to go across to an excellent panel of scholars. I have Dr. Suraj Yangde, young top scholar from Harvard and Oxford University. He's the author of Caste Matters. I have Dr. Kancha Alaya, author, Dalits rights activist. Uday Mahulkar is a well-known author. He's been RTI commissioner. We have Kanchan Gupta, senior advisor, Ministry of Information Broadcasting, and Sanjay Jha, commentator and policy analyst. I want to go across to Suraj Yangde first. The question is, between the BJP and the Congress, who at this moment is doing more to keep alive and push forward the legacy of Baba Saheb Ambedkar and trying to build the kind of India that Ambedkar believed in? If this is how I frame my question, what's your response? Suraj Yangde.
Thank you, Rahul. I think it's futile to divide these two arms of BJP and Congress, because the way both of the political parties, if you look at the history, especially pre-independence era and so forth, the track record of this two is not that dissimilar. And in this sense, who's doing more and who's doing less? The more in the sense of creating an aura around Ambedkar's personality, a hero worship, a kind of reverence, which really serves nobody. It's creating this bhakti bhav surrounding Ambedkar. The BJP has succeeded, and which really creates a mass of emotionally attached people without any material causes, which is really about their survival, about the economic policies, about the politics that they need representation. And regarding Congress, we need more tokenization, the more idea of using him as a cannonball to thrust at the opposition party, then Congress is doing better. Now, see, both of them are doing something regarding Ambedkar, but it really doesn't affect the regular value of people, the people who are working class, the poor, the peasants, the Dalits, the backward classes people. And I think that's what we need to focus. And here, what Modi excellently did was really pointing out to the wrongs and the sins committed by Congress. Now, Congress was never a lover of Ambedkar. And so Modi really picked up. Modi didn't pick up
but
because
neither
he
did
loved
the
Ambedkar.
RSS love Ambedkar.
No. They don't love either. So Modi picked up because there was a lacuna on the desk of when it comes to Congress's policy. So the appreciation from the BJP RSS, or rather BJP more outrightly towards Ambedkar, is not because they love Ambedkar, it's just because there is very little in the slate, on the slate written by Congress people. And I think that's why the issue that has really cropped up, it has really become a kind of a Ambedkar slugfest as to who is going to really claim his position. And it's amazing that the way Modi carried out by really creating this Panchatirtha and asking his embassies to celebrate across the world Ambedkar's, which really doesn't add any material value, but also it helps to subside Gandhian kind of philosophy, which RSS obviously stands as odds with. So it's not really anything that's coming out.
So you're saying it's not material, it's just more symbolic, and they're making the right noises without actually trying to push forth his vision in a more real way. Sanjay Jha, if you look at the argument the Congress is making, because even if we take just those 11 seconds of the Home Minister's clip, the argument is that he made it seem as if Ambedkar wasn't God. Ki Ambedkar karte rehte, itni bar Bhagwan ka naam liya, so you would have found heaven. So the argument, the root of the argument is that the Congress believes and Ambedkarites believe that Ambedkar is God. Why treat a human being like God? Why create this fake reverence over him, especially given the kind of positions that Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Nehru took when Ambedkar ji was alive on the kind of social revolution he wanted, and Nehru and Gandhi both opposed?
Well, I think the first thing that, Rahul, we need to understand is that differences, ideological, philosophical, would be a natural consequence of the conversations at that point of time. I mean, Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar had serious differences. That's out in the public domain. I don't think anybody can contest that. Equally in the public domain is what Dr. Ambedkar said, that I'm the most hated man in Hindu India. And that is a very powerful statement made by a man who fought for the Dalits and the other backward classes in our country. And this is the point that I think we need to understand here, that Dr. Ambedkar intrinsically was against majoritarianism. He was against the fundamentalism that religion brings to the table. In fact, he went on to add that he feels that a lot of people see him as a traitor, the language that we hear very often in India. But to cut to the politics, because we can't ignore the politics here, and I'm going to concede that Dr. Ambedkar, unfortunately, has become part of the battleground for a political appropriation. Cannot be denied. Having said that, I agree with what Suraj says. In fact, I've read his rather fascinating book as well. The truth remains that Dr. Ambedkar's effigies were burnt by the RSS in 1949. And the reason was because they challenged the Hindu Code Bill, which was a lot more progressive and reformist.
So let me put that question to Kanchan Gupta, because the reason that Dr. Ambedkar left the Nehru cabinet was because he was trying to push the Hindu Code Bill in 1951. And Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, the founder of the Jansangh, called this bill a threat to Hindu culture. The RSS's mouthpiece, the organizer, launched a tirade against Ambedkar's move. We oppose the Hindu Code Bill. We oppose it because it is derogatory, based on alien and immoral principles. It's not a Hindu Code Bill. It's anything but Hindu. We condemn it. RSS chief at that time, Golwalkar, too, castigated the move as an affront to Hindu sanskar. Now, this is when Ambedkar ji was alive. If what he was pushing for was an affront to Hindu sanskar, how is the BJP now seeking to claim his legacy? Kanchan Gupta.
I don't think what applied in 1948, 49, 50, 51 would be applicable today in today's politics and society. So to constantly hark back to what happened then, who said what, is really not...
but why not? When Modi ji and the BJP keep citing what Nehru ji said...
If you let me complete...
Yes, I will let you complete. We're just trying to frame the argument. Go on,
you can keep on interrupting me, fine. I will just stop.
No, I want to hear your argument. I will allow you the opportunity to complete it.
I mean, if you want to hear the contrarian view, then don't interrupt.
Okay, go on, sir.
Yeah, so, there is now this great thing going on, that the BJP is trying to appropriate Ambedkar, or that it is something which began only with Prime Minister Modi's advent to power. No, I mean, I can think back into the 1990s when the BJP's national executive meetings and national council meetings would be held in tents, and there would be always a tent which would be called the Ambedkar Hall or Ambedkar Sabhaghar. So it is not something new. Two, the BJP's attempt to reach out to the scheduled caste voters has been a consistent project, and that project has borne fruition in recent years. So you see that a lot of voters have transferred their allegiance from the Congress to the BJP. Now this is politics, and every party is entitled to contest for every section of the vote. And just because the BJP also then reaches out to make Ambedkar into a member of the party's pantheon of heroes doesn't make that any,
No, but can I push back now, Dada, by saying that when the BJP's top leadership keeps citing what Pandit Nehru did or did not do when he was in power, and holds the current Congress accountable for it, why then can the Congress not cite what the RSS or the Hindu Mahasabha did when Ambedkar ji was alive and there was actually an opportunity to implement the kind of India he wanted, which the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS both staunchly opposed?
Well, I think if you go through the debates, the opposition was on several nuts and bolts details. You even had the President of India, Rajendra Prasad, letting Nehru know that he would not sign the bill even if Parliament passes it. So there was a certain outlook at that time. There was a certain misgiving at that time, because let's not forget that they did not look at all the personal laws collectively. They picked on the Hindu personal laws and they brought in the Hindu reform bills. Now, I'm personally okay with the Hindu reform bills. I'm glad, and I think in retrospect, everybody is glad that it happened. But there were misgivings, and there were misgivings because of various factors. Now, the point is, Nehru did not push for the passage of those bills. Let's also get that clear. Nehru did not push for the passage of the bills because he did not want the credit of reform to go to B.R. Ambedkar. He wanted it to do it himself. The bills were passed. It's not as if the bills were not passed. The bills were passed only after Ambedkar left the cabinet and Nehru had sort of, managed to put him down. And then he again pushed for the Hindu code
Okay,
bills.
so I hear
and the
you. I
5
want to go
bills were
across to
passed.
Dr. Kancha Alaya now, because my problem with this debate in the way that the Congress and the opposition are trying to frame it is that they're objecting to the Home Minister saying that Ambedkar has become a fashion. If you chanted this name, the name of God as many times, you would have been blessed with heaven in 7 births. Now, implicit in the opposition's argument is the criticism that he thought that Ambedkar is not God. Now, why should anybody think of B.R. Ambedkar or Mahatma Gandhi or anybody else as a modern God? Now, that might be expedient politics. It might be good vote bank politics with an eye on the Dalit vote bank, but that's not right. Why should you treat anyone as God? You're a Dalit rights scholar. What do you make of the current debate?
Well, Rahul, what Home Minister Amit Shah said had a very deep spiritual implication for the entire Shudra, Dalit, Adivasi masses who never had a God who could show them heaven. Now, Amit Shah was saying that you should have talked about God 7 times and then you should have gone to heaven 7 times. Which heaven he was talking about? Where do Shudras, Dalits, Adivasis go? Which heaven they should go? There is no food equality there. There is no equal right to sit together, equal right to marry together. Now what is that in heaven? He has categorically denied the spiritual status of Ambedkar.
No, but my question to you, Dr. Alaya, is why treat Ambedkar as God?
Ambedkar took
So with a lot of respect and with no offense, why treat Ambedkar ji as God? He's a modern day human being, a character from our contemporary history.
Millions of people. Rahul, listen.
Yes.
Yeah, millions of people. When each Baba can become God, Satya Sai Baba could become God, many Babas are becoming God. When Ambedkar, who has liberated the slaves, Ambedkar, who has shown this path of spiritual, social, economic equality in philosophical terms, it is this line of RSS BJP that Congress never had about Ambedkar. Now you show any writing of Nehru or discussion of anybody from. The second thing is,
but the Congress never sought to treat Nehru as God. They did try and exalt his position, put him on a pedestal, but they never made it seem as if he was a modern day God.
In that sense, Nehru could never be thought in terms of Ambedkar's spiritual status because Ambedkar has liberated the untouchables out of any religious fold, and the Shudra Dalits who have no equal rights within the
Okay, you make an interesting argument. I want Uday Mahurkar to counter it. The charge by Kancha Alaya is that Amit Shah denied the spiritual status of B.R. Ambedkar, who lifted millions out of untouchability. If Satya Sai Baba can be treated as God, the Dalits are entitled, the millions of them are entitled to treat Ambedkar as God, and the charge is the Home Minister took away that spiritual halo that Ambedkar has in the eyes of the Dalits. Uday Mahurkar.
Yeah. No. I want to take this debate beyond what has been discussed, And this whole thing about Congress, RSS and BJP being always Ambedkar bashers, it's totally wrong. There were differences on the Hindu code bill, but let me tell you, in the 1956 Bhandara election, which Ambedkar contested, one of his main campaigners was Dattopant Thegdi, the tallest leader of RSS at that time. So this whole thing is being quoted, lot of it is being quoted out of context, but I want to go beyond this. You see, Dr. Ambedkar is seen as father of India's constitution and as Messiah of Dalits. But Dr. Ambedkar was a great economist. When he was a minister from 1942 to 1946 in the central cabinet, He generated many ideas to do with irrigation, with the river interlinking, power projects. In fact, many projects on Mahanadi and Daman-Ganga river were basically ideas of Ambedkar.
Okay.
Then his thesis, he was a great economist. His thesis was on rupee.
No, so you didn't really
Dr.
answer my
Ambedkar
question.
should
Let
be
me put
seen
that
as
same
a very
question to
wholesome leader, as a
Kanchan
great
Gupta and
leader
see if I can get him respond to Kancha Alaya, who says
Tell me,
that
I'll
in the way the Home Minister framed the argument, Kancha Alaya's charge is he takes away the spiritual halo that millions of Dalits attach to B.R. Ambedkar by making it seem as if he's not a modern day god. If Satya Sai Baba can be a god for millions, why can't Ambedkar for the Dalits? Kanchan Gupta.
No, I totally agree that.
I think you put yourself on mute. Go on.
Can you hear me?
I hear you well. Go on.
Yeah, so if Birsa Munda today is seen as Bhagwan Birsa Munda, I mean, he's seen as a figure who centralizes Adivasi pride, Adivasi self-esteem, and who sort of inspires the Adivasi to maintain his identity. So similarly, I see no problem with B.R. Ambedkar becoming an icon, a spiritual icon if necessary, for the masses who believe in his philosophy, who believe in what he said, and who believe in what he stood for. Now, B.R. Ambedkar did not only stand for a political identity, he also stood for a social and economic identity of the people of India. I would not restrict that identity only to members of the scheduled caste community.
Okay.
Now, and hence, I think this whole thing about the BJP appropriating Bhimrao Ambedkar and elevating him to the status of their own pantheon of leaders is something which, it's a project which began earlier.
No, so both the Congress and the BJP seem okay, Suraj Yengde, with treating Ambedkar as a modern day god. You seem to have had a problem with it. Why is it that you think that while this may be politically expedient, it's essentially being done with an eye on vote bank politics? Both parties are attaching a degree of reverence to Baba Saheb Ambedkar because it suits their politics at this moment, not because they necessarily mean it.
No, that is what I tried to explain to you. For the BJP, it's not politics of the moment. In 1990, 93, 94, 95, 96, it was not politics of expedience for the BJP. At that time, if they were naming their national executive and national council venues as Bhimrao Ambedkar Sabhaghar and things like that, so and his portrait would be there along with those of the BJP's own icons. So what is wrong?
Okay, let Suraj Yengde contest that. Suraj, are you okay with the BJP and the Congress both wanting to give this spiritual, larger-than-life, godlike halo to Baba Saheb Ambedkar?
I mean, BJP and Congress, they don't really have the authority, neither they have the ontological position to do that. Ambedkar has already been upholded among the tallest pantheons, as Professor Kanchalaya pointed out, among the backward classes, the Adivasis and Dalits, who see that their modern day existence through civil and political liberties guaranteed to the Constitution as well as outside Parliament struggle of Ambedkar is very much visible. So that's the kind of reverence that's coming. There's no, when Ambedkar died, there was not even money to build what we have today, Chaitya Bhumi. His son had to go around with begging ball to build a center of his resting peace, which is now Chaitya Bhumi in Dadar. So we know that neither these two hegemonic ideas can do anything to Ambedkar, but there is a very easy way. The moment you add a spiritual reverence without material concern, you kill the person. You let the person die permanently and not really live up to its radical ideas. Because heroes, and especially in India, and Ambedkar wrote and also in his speech talked about how dangerous hero worship is. Also in the Constitutional Assembly, he was talking about how it will lead to a certain form of anarchic politics. And that's what has happened. When you add this bhakti bhav, when you add this mindless reverence, especially from a state apparatus, what you essentially do is to just tell people to be high on this religious dogmatism, which doesn't really require rational and science to back up your own fundamental values. It is purely based on misgivings. But if you really want to uphold Ambedkar, you really have to go back to what his grandson recently spoke about, that the actual policies Ambedkar wrote. Ambedkar did not singularly author India's constitution. His single authorship of India's constitution was states and minorities. That was his proposal, which really gives the poor, the marginalized, the women, the oppressed, and as well as the people who own lands, debentures, meaning the ones who had land. Ambedkar wanted them to be distributed by not doing the communist style of taking away the way it happened in Soviet and other parts.
No, but the fact also is, Sanjay Jha, if I look back at the kind of comments that Rahul Gandhi has made in the past, he has so often spoken against the caste system itself and spoken against a lot of the ideas which he now, for example, the caste census, etc., which he now professes. For a long time, he was an opponent. So if he's accusing the BJP of political opportunism, the mirror can be held to his face and said, well, given how you started out, you were a fierce opponent of this. Now you're finding it politically expedient because you want the Dalit vote bank to come back to the Congress, which is why you're saying you believe in ideas which you originally opposed.
Rahul, I'll tell you why that argument is weak. Because especially after 2014, India has got economically more skewed. And I think it's also seeing a lot of social polarization. And I think the reason why the BJP ought to be worried and why they disagreed with Dr. Ambedkar is because he believed in a social democracy. What you're seeing in India over the last 10 years is the greater role of religion in Indian democracy. And like it or not, Kanchan Gupta cannot ignore that this is an ideological party and its founders had strong views on the constitution and Bhartiyata. Read what M.S. Golwalkar has said. Read what Vinayak Damodar Savarkar has said. Read what Mohan Bhagwat says. He wants India to be a Hindu Rashtra, which is anti-constitution. And why did Dr. Ambedkar finally leave Hinduism?
No, but the good thing about this whole debate, Kanchal, I am out of time, which is why I'm cutting in right now, is that it's brought back the ideas of Baba Saheb Ambedkar in the contemporary frame much more than earlier. So many more people reading up about Ambedkar, reading out about what he wrote, what others said about him, wrote about him, much more than otherwise. So in that sense, he's being kept alive because of the debate in this present moment much more than previously.
No, it is definitely the present ownership of the mass of Ambedkar, not only because of the constitution, which the BJP people wanted to change if they get 400 seats in the last election.
Rahul, that's a lie.
And I don't know whether my friends are not looking at this. So the question is the spiritual dimension includes economic dimension. Take for example Gautam Buddha. Did he not give us an economic idea?
Okay, I know I'm running out of time, but I don't want this to turn into a melee. We'll go one at a time and I'll give Kanchan and Uday a final opportunity to comment. Let Kancha Alaya complete in 30 seconds. Kancha. Mr. Alaya.
Yeah, God like Buddha. Now what happens to economics? Economics will remain in the part of Ambedkar thought. I'm really sorry to listen this from my own friends. No, if they say that only the states and minorities Ambedkar constitution, then this constitution is likely to be changed by BJP, if not in this election.
Uday Mahurkar is taking umbrage to what you're saying. He wants to come in and comment on that. I'm going to give Uday Mahurkar a quick final opportunity. Yes,
no,
Mr.
just a minute. Only Narendra Modi ji is coming, saying that,
this entire debate is skewed. Entire debate is skewed because Ambedkar's views on Muslim community and Muslims were very different. They are never being discussed. They are never discussed by these people. Why don't they discuss his book, My Thoughts on Pakistan? Why they don't discuss the contents of that book? He is more harsh on Muslim community than even Savarkar.
Okay, Kanchan Gupta, final 20 seconds to make your closing argument. Kanchan Da.
No, listen. I mean, I must say this, and I say this with a great deal of regret. Kancha Ilaya has a habit of putting out distorted statements and claiming that is the truth. Just because he says it and he is an quote-unquote activist doesn't make it true. He has no evidence to say that the BJP wanted to or BJP had planned to change the constitution wholesale after the 2024 elections. He's talking, that's a lie. And I think something which B.R. Ambedkar would be
How
appalled.
many of
Okay,
your
you know,
leaders-
gentlemen, this
how many
debate
of your
is,
leaders-
as a
Ambedkar
student
would
of
be
Indian
appalled.
politics, fascinating. It's also endless. Unfortunately, I'm out of time and therefore I need to wrap. But I promise you, you know, what we'll do next time is we'll leave the politics out of it. We'll just stick to the scholarship. We'll stick to what happened. We'll stick to history. And we'll stitch a full, deeper, more meaningful conversation around this. We've had an excellent, thought-provoking engagement. So I want to thank you all for joining us on this broadcast.